In the final throes of World War II, British pilots found themselves confronting a remarkable marvel of engineering, the Me-262 fighter jet. This aircraft, with its sleek design and revolutionary jet propulsion, stood as a testament to German forces' technological ambition. As the pilots inspected its wings, they were both astonished and apprehensive, recognizing the potential threat this groundbreaking machine posed in the aerial battleground. While some characters in this narrative may be fictionalized for storytelling purposes, the events surrounding the Me-262 are rooted in historical fact, revealing the pivotal moments that shaped air combat and military strategy. To delve deeper into the intricacies of history and uncover the stories that shaped our world, subscribe to our channel. Enjoy access to well-researched facts, rare perspectives, and clear explanations that bring the past to life. With regular uploads, you'll gain unparalleled insights into the events that define our history. Don't miss out on the journey. The air was thick with anticipation as the British pilots gathered at the airstrip in the war-torn remnants of Germany, their eyes scanning the horizon for the arrival of the Me-262 fighter. The intelligence reports had hinted at the revolutionary capabilities of this new aircraft, but nothing could have prepared them for the sight that awaited them on the tarmac. The Me-262, with its sleek fuselage and swept-back wings, embodied a new era of aviation technology. The British pilots, veterans of the Battle of Britain and seasoned in dogfights, were both anxious and curious, their minds racing with a blend of awe and disbelief at the prospect of inspecting an aircraft that could potentially redefine the aerial combat landscape. As the plane rolled into view, it seemed to challenge the very nature of what they knew about air warfare. The Me-262's engines emitted a low, throaty growl that sent vibrations through the ground, a stark contrast to the roar of their own piston-driven fighters. The pilots exchanged glances, their expressions reflecting an unspoken recognition of the machine's power. The stark reality of their situation was not lost on them. This was not merely another enemy aircraft, but a symbol of innovation that could shift the tide of conflict in favor of the German forces, a formidable foe that could outpace and outmaneuver them in the skies. As they approached the aircraft, a wave of mixed emotions surged through the group. Some felt a twinge of envy at the German engineers who had brought such technology to life, while others were gripped by a sense of foreboding, knowing that the Me-262's speed and agility could threaten their very existence. The pilots craned their necks to inspect the wings, mesmerized by the design that seemed to promise a new dimension in aerial combat. Each surface was a testament to engineering prowess. The swept wings not only enhanced performance, but also hinted at a future where jet propulsion would become the norm. Yet beneath the admiration lay an undercurrent of anxiety, an unspoken acknowledgement that this innovation could indeed alter the balance of power. The thrill of inspection soon turned into a meticulous analysis as the pilots circled the aircraft. They took note of the intricacies, the advanced cockpit instruments, the sleek canopy, and the position of the cannon ports. Every detail held significance, from the aerodynamics of the design to the seemingly effortless elegance of the framework. Questions buzzed in their minds. How did the German forces manage to create something so advanced? Were they simply ahead of the curve, or had they somehow harnessed intelligence that was beyond the reach of Allied minds? Each answer seemed to bear weighty implications as the pilots understood that the future of aerial warfare could hinge on technological supremacy. In the midst of their examination, one pilot, Flight Lieutenant John Mercer, pointed out an unusual feature, a series of openings along the wings that appeared designed for additional armaments. Are they really contemplating mounting more guns? He wondered aloud, his voice tinged with disbelief. The implications were staggering. If the Me-262 were to be armed with an array of weapons, it could engage in both dogfighting and ground attack with unprecedented effectiveness. The pilots, trained to engage in aerial duels, could find themselves facing an adversary capable of multiple combat roles. Mercer's observation lingered in the air, a poignant reminder of the ever-evolving nature of war. As the inspection progressed, the pilots exchanged tactical insights, their discussions reflecting a blend of respect and concern. Sergeant Thomas Ward elaborated on the ramifications of the Me-262's performance, predicting that its speed could allow for hit-and-run tactics that would frustrate traditional dogfighting strategies. He concluded that without countermeasures, British fighter tactics would need to evolve rapidly. The pilots realized that they were not merely facing a new aircraft, they were standing on the precipice of an adaptation battle, where survival hinged on their ability to innovate as quickly as their adversaries had. Their shared knowledge and camaraderie were stark contrasts to the reality of their situation. The fate of nations rested on the outcomes of their skirmishes in the skies. This aircraft, with its advanced design and the potential for domination, was a harbinger of change, a new chapter in the annals of warfare. The pilots' conversation shifted towards potential strategies, revealing both their understanding of the threat and their resolve to confront it. They were resolved not to let the Me-262 spell doom for the Allied cause. Instead, it became a rallying point for their ingenuity, a challenge to be met head-on with courage, determination, and resourcefulness. As they stepped away from the aircraft, the pilots carried with them not just a sense of the aircraft's potential, but a deeper understanding of their own role in the wider conflict. The Me-262 was not merely an enemy machine, it was a canvas upon which the future of aerial combat would be painted. While they had witnessed the technical marvel, they also recognized that the true battle would be fought not only in the skies, but in the hearts and minds of those who dared to adapt and overcome. In that moment of inspection, the pilots grasped that what lay ahead was not merely a confrontation of technology, but a testament to human perseverance and the unyielding spirit of those who fought for freedom and survival in a world drawn into chaos. As the British pilots gathered around the Me-262, an aircraft that marked a significant leap in aviation technology, their initial astonishment transitioned into a blend of curiosity and unease. The Me-262 was a product of an ambitious engineering vision, featuring swept wings and twin jet engines that seemed to defy the limitations of conventional aircraft. The air was thick with the scent of burnt fuel, a sharp contrast to the crispness of the morning. Each pilot took in the sleek silhouette of the fighter, a streamlined predator poised on the tarmac. To the British, this was not merely another enemy aircraft. It was a manifestation of a burgeoning era in aerial warfare. The examination began with meticulous attention to detail. Each pilot was instructed to scrutinize the Me-262's fuselage, noting its remarkable construction methods, blending both metals and innovative materials in ways previously deemed impossible for combat aircraft. The use of aluminum alloys and extensive rivet patterns suggested a leap in manufacturing techniques that would soon ripple across the global aviation industry. Some pilots exchanged glances, silently acknowledging that this was more than just a technological marvel, it was a harbinger of the future of warfare. They were aware that their own supermarine Spitfires, while celebrated, now faced a formidable challenge in direct combat. One pilot, Flight Lieutenant Thomas Whitaker, was particularly intrigued by the aircraft's wings. As he inspected the surface, he noticed an intricate arrangement of leading-edge slats and trailing-edge flaps designed to enhance maneuverability. His mind raced with implications. Whitaker had spent countless hours training against enemy fighters, but had never encountered anything that could so radically alter aerial combat dynamics. The Me-262 offered not just speed, but agility that could easily outmatch the British designs. This was a clear acknowledgement that the balance of power was shifting under the weight of technological innovation. Yet, Even as admiration swirled among the pilots, an undercurrent of trepidation loomed. They were all too aware that the Me-262 was not merely an aircraft. It was part of a larger strategy employed by the German forces. This fighter could outpace most British models, potentially allowing enemy squadrons to intercept bombers deep within Allied territories. Whitaker felt a chill run down his spine at the implications. If the Germans could mass-produce these jets, the air war over Europe might take a catastrophic turn. The fighter could change the course of the war, shifting the focus from ground engagements to aerial dominion, which both sides desperately sought. As they moved to examine the cockpit, the pilots noted the advanced instrumentation that rivaled anything they had seen. The array of dials and gauges reflected a pilot-centric design that prioritized control and intuition. It was a stark reminder that the enemy, too, was constantly innovating. The very technology that offered a glimpse of the future also served as a warning. Complacency could yield dire consequences. The pilots exchanged hushed remarks about the urgent necessity for upgrades in their own aircraft, a realization that echoed throughout the ranks of the Royal Air Force, igniting discussions of further investment in research and development. Outside, the distant hum of other aircraft training in the sky seemed to reinforce the urgency of the moment. The pilots were acutely aware that the war was not simply won by technology alone. It required strategy and audacity in equal measure. As they continued their inspection, conversations turned toward tactics. If the Me-262 could indeed maintain supremacy in the skies, new strategies would need to be devised. Whitaker suggested that if they could lure the German forces into a trap, perhaps they could turn the tables. The realization that they might have to rethink their entire aerial engagement strategy hung heavily in the air. The Me-262's presence triggered a deeper reflection on the British wartime ethos. Each pilot understood that the fight for air supremacy was not simply about machines, it was a battle of wills, ideologies, and sacrifices. As they pondered the advanced capabilities of the Me-262, it became evident that their resolve was as crucial as technological advancement. This aircraft, with all its promise and peril, symbolized not just a shift in aerial combat, but a reminder of the stakes at hand. The lives of countless individuals and the future of nations depended on their next moves. As the sun began to lower in the afternoon sky, casting long shadows across the tarmac, the pilots stepped back to reflect on their findings. The Me-262 was an engineering feat, yes, but it also served as a symbol of the evolving nature of warfare, where technology, strategy, and human endeavor fused to create an unpredictable battlefield. The pilots, while proud of their heritage and craft, felt the burning urgency to adapt. The specter of the Me-262 loomed large, a reminder that the skies would soon be filled with a new breed of conflict, one that demanded not just courage, but an unwillingness to shy away from innovation. The stakes had never been higher. As the British pilots gathered around the Me-262, a palpable aura of intrigue enveloped them. The jet fighter, a product of advanced engineering, stood stark against the backdrop of the war-torn landscape. Its sleek design contrasted sharply with the biplanes and piston-engine fighters that had dominated the skies for nearly 2 decades. The pilots exchanged incredulous glances, their minds racing with implications. This was not merely another aircraft. It was a glimpse into the future of aerial warfare. Reports had trickled in regarding this new German weapon, but seeing it firsthand was an entirely different experience. The presence of the Me-262 symbolized a potential shift in the balance of power in the air. Upon closer inspection, the pilots noted the distinctive characteristics of the Me-262. The twin jet engines mounted on the wings, a design choice that seemed almost audacious, were revolutionary. The engines, having been developed in the face of material shortages and technical challenges, exemplified both ingenuity and desperation. A sense of awe mixed with concern settled over the British contingent. Here was an aircraft that could outpace their best fighters, a machine capable of turning the tide of battles if it were mass-produced and deployed effectively. For once, the British pilots felt the weight of vulnerability. The balance of aerial supremacy hung precariously in the balance. As they examined the wings, the pilots discovered the meager but significant modifications made to improve aerodynamics. The slatted design served not only to enhance lift, but also to facilitate swift maneuvers, a disconcerting advantage in dogfights. At that moment, the implications were all too clear. If these aircraft entered full production, it would not just be a challenge to their skills, but a direct threat to the very safety of Britain. The pilots shared a collective unease. This was the harbinger of a new era in air combat, one in which speed and technological prowess would determine outcomes instead of mere valor or tactical acumen. Amidst the technical marvels, there lay an irony that did not go unnoticed. The Me-262 was born from the ambition of a regime that had sought to dominate Europe through sheer force. The irony of its existence, an advanced machine developed in a time of desperation, resonated deeply among the British pilots. They were acutely aware that the technologies that had brought them together in conflict could just as easily serve to extend the war if the German forces harnessed their capabilities fully. In a way, the Me-262 represented a duality, both a symbol of progress and the spectre of impending doom. As they moved from wing to fuselage, they noted the cockpit instrumentation, a cacophony of dials and switches that spoke to the complexity of operating such a machine. The pilots marveled at the thought that the Me-262 could reach altitudes and speeds that were previously unattainable in their own aircraft. Yet the very complexity that endowed the Me-262 with its advantages also hinted at potential vulnerabilities. The British pilots knew that with such advanced technology came an array of new challenges. The training required to operate it effectively would be extensive. A miscalculation could prove catastrophic. Consequently, the pilots pondered the broader implications of their findings. Was this merely a fleeting glimpse of the future, or did it signify a lasting change in warfare? Each pilot felt the weight of their responsibility, for the information they gathered would have to be relayed back to their superiors. The intelligence could shape future strategies, potentially offsetting the advantages of this incredible machine. In their hearts, they sensed that they were standing at a crucial juncture where decisions made today would echo through the coming months and years of war. Their thoughts were interrupted by a distant rumble, and they turned to see a group of German soldiers approaching. The tension in the air thickened as the pilots instinctively placed their hands on their sidearms. The arrival of the enemy troops brought an acute awareness of the stakes involved. It was an ironic twist of fate. Here they were, British pilots inspecting the very machine designed to challenge their supremacy, just as German soldiers arrived to reassert their own control over the territory. It underscored the relentless nature of conflict, an endless loop of inspection, combat, and counter-strategy that defined the war's fabric. The soldiers, seemingly disinterested in the British presence, focused instead on their own task of securing the perimeter. But the brief encounter ignited a realization among the pilots. While they were engrossed in their analysis, the German forces were equally determined to maintain their momentum. The British pilots felt time slipping through their fingers. Whatever technological edge they hoped to gain from this inspection could vanish as quickly as it had appeared if they did not act decisively. As the soldiers moved away, the pilots returned to their examination of the Me-262, their breaths steady. The aircraft before them was a testament to human innovation, yet it was also a reminder of the stakes at play in this great conflict. They understood that the war was not merely about machines, but about the heart and resolve of those who flew them. The Me-262, a harbinger of both possibility and peril, stood as a symbol of a changing tide, demanding courage and adaptability from all who dared to take to the skies. As British pilots surveyed the revolutionary Me-262 fighter, their initial astonishment transitioned into a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The aircraft, with its sleek design and remarkable speed, signified a profound evolution in aerial warfare. Commissioned by the German forces during a time of desperation, the jet's development had accelerated due to the pressing need for technological superiority. Each detail, from its advanced jet engines to its swept-back wings, spoke to an aggressive innovation aimed at reclaiming air dominance. The pilots understood that they were not merely observing an aircraft, they were witnessing the future of aviation, one that could alter the course of the conflict if it were to be fully realized and deployed. Among the pilots was squadron leader John "Jack" Williams, an experienced flyer who had faced countless odds in the skies over Europe. As he inspected the Me-262, he felt an unsettling sensation in the pit of his stomach. The choice to develop a jet fighter had not been made lightly. It was a gamble by the German forces that reflected their desperation as much as their ambition. Williams recognized that the Me-262 embodied a duality, a marvel of engineering that stood as a symbol of both hope and despair for its creators. The British had long relied on their established superiority in combat aircraft, but the Me-262 threatened to dismantle that confidence, offering a stark reminder that the tides of war could shift unexpectedly. The technological leap presented by the Me-262 was more than just its speed. Beneath its streamlined surfaces lay cutting-edge engineering that integrated newly developed jet propulsion with advanced aerodynamics. Williams and his fellow pilots marveled at the design elements that allowed for unprecedented performance in the sky. The aircraft's engines, the Junkers Jumo 04, were revolutionary in their capability, enabling the fighter to reach speeds that left conventional propeller-driven planes in its wake. Williams couldn't shake the thought that if this technology had been fully operational earlier, the air war could have unfolded entirely differently. As the pilots probed deeper into the aircraft's features, they noted the Me-262's armament. The twin 30mm Mk108 cannons mounted on its wings were devastatingly potent, complemented by the potential for aerial rockets. It was a stark reminder that while the British had perfected their strategy of massed bombers and agile fighters, German forces were equally dedicated to evolving their tactics. Each glimpse into the cockpit revealed sophisticated controls and instrumentation, a testament to their engineering prowess that would take time for the Allies to counter. Williams felt an urgency gripping him, a realization that knowledge of this aircraft was critical to thwarting its potential. In combat, the Me-262's advantages could be a decisive factor. The aircraft's ability to climb rapidly and dive with ease would enhance its combat effectiveness against British formations. Williams pondered the implications for their upcoming missions, knowing that the enemy would likely employ the Me-262 as a defensive measure to protect vital infrastructure. It epitomized the shifting landscape of aerial combat, where speed, technology, and precision began to eclipse sheer numbers and traditional tactics. He envisioned the dogfights that were on the horizon, realizing that the Me-262 could force a re-evaluation of their strategies in the skies. While the pilots engaged in technical discussions about the Me-262, an unspoken tension filled the air. This aircraft represented not only a formidable threat, but also a catalyst for change within the British military ranks. The realization dawned on them that their adversaries were not just scrambling for survival, they were innovating. The specter of defeat loomed larger with each passing moment of contemplation. Williams understood that this was the crucible of wartime evolution, the moment when fear could either paralyze or galvanize a fighter. Amidst their observations, they had not anticipated the emotional gravity that came with witnessing a piece of machinery that could potentially alter the fate of nations. The Me-262 stood as a testament to the ingenuity and resolve of its creators, a physical manifestation of their hope amidst mounting setbacks. For the British pilots, the challenge was not merely to adapt their tactics, but also to embrace a new mindset that acknowledged their enemies' capabilities. This moment was pivotal. They were called to honor the legacy of those who had fought bravely before them and to rise to the challenge with newfound determination. As the inspection concluded, the pilots gathered privately, their minds racing with the implications of what they had seen. Williams sensed a collective resolve among his peers. This was not merely a technological marvel, it was a call to arms. He shared his thoughts on the necessity of rapid adaptation to counter this burgeoning threat. They spoke of implementing new training regimens, focusing on speed and agility as primary attributes, as well as instilling a sense of urgency in their missions. It was a recognition that the war was entering a new phase, one that would necessitate not just bravery, but also ingenuity and tactics. Finally, Williams felt a rush of solidarity with his fellow pilots, a promise forged in the face of adversity. They were not simply defenders of their homeland, they were warriors, ready to meet the challenge brought forth by the Me-262. The image of the aircraft lingered in their minds, a vivid reminder of the high stakes involved and the need for vigilance. United by a common purpose, they prepared to face the evolving battlefield, determined to stand resolutely against the formidable innovations of their adversaries. What they had witnessed was not just machinery. It was a clarion call for resilience, innovation, and unyielding courage in the skies above Europe. As dawn broke over the airfield at RAF Cranwell in Lincolnshire, the British pilots gathered around the Me-262 with a mix of trepidation and fascination. This was no ordinary aircraft. It represented a significant evolutionary leap in aerial technology that had been the stuff of rumor and speculation. The Me-262's sleek lines and cutting-edge design stood in stark contrast to the more familiar propeller-driven fighters of the Allies. Yet what captivated the British pilots was not merely its aesthetic, but what the aircraft embodied, a potential turning point in the air war. The implications of its advanced technology were immense, and they understood that this machine could alter the balance of power in the skies. Flying the Me-262 was a privilege that several pilots had only dreamed of, having read intelligence reports filled with descriptions of its speed and maneuverability. As they moved closer, the sunlight glinted off the wings, revealing not only the aircraft's advanced engineering, but the telltale signs of German ingenuity. Technicians had incorporated a jet engine, placing it at the forefront of aviation technology. The British pilots could scarcely believe the photographs they had seen, still in disbelief that they now stood before the real thing. The adrenaline of excitement coursed through their veins as they prepared for their inspection, recognizing that they were not simply confronting an enemy aircraft, but a symbol of the changing landscape of aerial warfare. As they commenced their examination, whispers of admiration circulated among the pilots. The fuselage, adorned with a green and brown camouflage pattern, was a striking visual reminder of the adversary they faced. But the true marvel lay in the wings, where the engineers had meticulously integrated components that would ensure unmatched performance. The jet's sweeping wings were designed for speed, allowing it to slice through the air with a grace not seen in any Allied fighter. Each feature told a story of engineering prowess, a testament to the desperate measures the German forces undertook in the latter stages of the conflict. This wasn't merely an aircraft. It was a beacon of innovation forged in the crucible of war. Yet, beneath the surface of admiration lurked a palpable anxiety. The pilots exchanged glances, each grappling with the reality that the Me-262 might soon be used against them. The potential speed and agility of the aircraft posed a direct threat to their own safety and the effectiveness of the Royal Air Force. The pilots understood that their next encounters in the air would be fraught with challenges previously unimagined. The realization weighed heavily on their shoulders. The war was far from over, and the Me-262 could very well tip the scales against them. Each pilot was aware that this technological marvel could render their own aircraft obsolete, compelling them to rethink their tactics and strategies in real time. As they moved on, taking in details of the cockpit, they noted the advanced instrument panel, filled with dials and gauges that reflected the mechanized complexity of this new breed of aircraft. The cockpit design, with ergonomics that seemed light years ahead of their own fighters, highlighted a shift in aviation philosophy. It was clear that the Germans had not only designed a weapon, but had also taken into account the human element that operated it. This detail served as a reminder that the war was not merely a clash of machines, but a battle of will and ingenuity. The pilots felt a surge of determination. They recognized that they needed to adapt, to innovate, or risk being outmatched. Suddenly, the day's operations shifted focus. Commanders arrived to oversee the inspection, eager to gather intelligence and strategize responses to this technological threat. The presence of higher brass added a sense of urgency to the moment. The British pilots, aware that their findings would influence broader military decisions, approached the Me-262 with heightened scrutiny. Their task was not just to marvel at the aircraft, but to dissect its capabilities for any exploitable weaknesses. As they noted discrepancies and compared them to their own aircraft, the atmosphere thickened with the weight of responsibility. This inspection would serve as a linchpin in the unfolding narrative of the air war. Between technical observations, conversations evolved into discussions about the broader implications of the aircraft's capabilities. They speculated about the type of pilot who would fly such a machine and the tactics they would employ. Would the Germans use the Me-262 in formation or as a singular strike force? The uncertainty of their combat strategies added layers of complexity to the British pilots' own mission planning. The Me-262 was not only a marvel of engineering, it was a psychological weapon capable of instilling fear and uncertainty among Allied ranks. The pilots recognized that they had to counteract this narrative to foster resolve among their squadrons in the face of adversity. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the tarmac, a collective resolve began to take shape among the British pilots. They understood the challenge posed by the Me-262, but they also saw it as an opportunity to galvanize their own efforts. In their hearts, they knew that the war was an unending cycle of adaptation and evolution, where each side sought to outmaneuver the other. The Me-262 was merely a chapter in a much larger story, one that they were determined to write. It underscored the importance of innovation and resourcefulness, the qualities that had defined their own successes thus far. As they concluded their inspection, the pilots felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Me-262 was a formidable adversary, yet it was also a clarion call to arms. It reminded them that in warfare one must remain vigilant, continuously learning and adapting to the evolving landscape of battle. The lessons learned from this inspection would shape tactics for months to come, embedding themselves deep within the fabric of the air war narrative. The Me-262, with its remarkable design, would haunt their thoughts, serving as a catalyst for growth amidst the chaos of conflict. As the British pilots stood on the tarmac, their eyes transfixed on the sleek contours of the Me-262 fighter, the atmosphere was charged with an unsettling mix of awe and trepidation. The aircraft's silhouette shimmered under the noon sun, a harbinger of a new age in aerial warfare that few could fathom. With its twin jet engines glinting like polished jewels, the Me-262 represented not just an engineering triumph, but a decisive pivot in the balance of power in the skies. The British pilots, seasoned veterans of countless dogfights, could hardly shake off the sense of disbelief that enveloped them. They had entered the realm of the extraordinary, where the rules of engagement and the operational limits of traditional aircraft were being rewritten. The pilots pondered the implications of what they were witnessing. The sleek lines of the Me-262 were no mere accident of design. They were a product of ambition and desperation. As the conflict escalated throughout Europe, German forces had turned their focus toward developing advanced technologies that could offset their dwindling resources. The development of the Me-262 had been fraught with both visionary enthusiasm and stark challenges. The aircraft, originally conceived as a conventional fighter, had undergone a transformation amid the war's shifting tides. It was a testament to human ingenuity, but also a symbol of the desperation that plagued a nation facing imminent defeat. As they examined the aircraft, the pilots noted the ingenious placement of the engines, mounted high on the wings. This configuration not only offered enhanced aerodynamics, but also provided a strategic advantage, a reduced risk of engine damage during combat maneuvers. The engineers' foresight was both admirable and disheartening, for it underscored the German forces' relentless drive to innovate even in their waning days. The pilots exchanged glances, their expressions revealing an unspoken acknowledgement of the threat this aircraft posed. The Me-262 could engage and outpace any Allied fighter, fundamentally altering the tempo of air engagements in a way they had not anticipated. In the cockpit, the instruments gleamed with precision, a striking contrast to the more rudimentary setups of the British aircraft. This technological sophistication was indicative of the intense resources and talent that had been funneled into the Me-262 project, resources that had, in many ways, been misallocated in the face of the war's broader strategic failures. The pilots recognized that this was more than just an aircraft. It was a microcosm of a militaristic ethos that prioritized engineering excellence while neglecting the larger war effort. The dissonance of such brilliance juxtaposed against the chaos of war left them contemplative, grappling with the futility that could arise even from remarkable innovations. Among the myriad features that caught their attention was the weaponry. 4 30mm cannons were mounted in the nose, bristling with lethal potential. The British pilots imagined the havoc such firepower could wreak, especially in the hands of skilled pilots who had mastered the intricacies of the new jet fighter. British intelligence had long been aware of the Me-262's potential, but witnessing it firsthand was a stark reminder of the reality they faced. As the implications of the aircraft sank in, a chilling realization emerged. The balance of aerial supremacy was at risk, and this formidable machine could be the tipping point. The pilots reflected on their own aircraft, the Spitfires and Hurricanes that had become their trusted companions in the sky. They recalled the countless hours spent training and honing their skills, relying on the agility and maneuverability of their planes to outsmart their adversaries. The Me-262's very design mocked their reliance on such tactics. Here stood an adversary that combined speed and firepower in a way that could render their strategies obsolete. The balance between man and machine was shifting, and they were acutely aware that it was not just a battle of wills, but an equation of technological advancement versus seasoned experience. Yet, amid the anxiety and uncertainty, the pilots also felt a flicker of resolve. They were acutely aware that the Me-262, while groundbreaking, came with its own vulnerabilities. The complexity of its engines posed maintenance challenges that could not be overlooked, and the sheer speed it boasted required exceptional piloting skill. In many ways, this aircraft was a double-edged sword, a marvel of modern technology that, if mismanaged or subjected to the relentless pressures of war, could falter as quickly as it soared. The pilots understood that the outcome of the war would not be determined simply by advancements in technology. The human element remained crucial. With the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the airfield, the pilots returned to their aircraft with newfound determination. They resolved to adapt, to innovate in their own right. As they climbed into the cockpits of their own planes, they recognized that the essence of warfare lay not solely in superior machinery, but in astute strategy and the indomitable spirit of the pilot. The Me-262 might have opened a new chapter in aerial combat, but it was the men behind the controls, their tenacity and their resolve, that would ultimately shape the course of the war. In the twilight, as the sounds of engines roared to life, a sense of camaraderie enveloped the pilots. They were bound together by a common purpose, united in the face of an evolving threat. A battle loomed on the horizon, not just against a formidable machine, but against the spectre of innovation itself. A challenge that would test their limits and define the very nature of aerial warfare in the days to come. The British pilots took off into the fading light, their hearts steeled by the knowledge that the fight was far from over and that the skies had become a stage for an unprecedented contest of wits and will. As British pilots gathered around the Me-262 fighter, the air was thick with the scent of oil and fuel, mingling with the underlying electricity of disbelief and marvel. The aircraft, with its sleek lines and distinctive twin-engine configuration, stood as a testament to German engineering. The structure appeared deceptively fragile, yet the careful craftsmanship hinted at an advanced technology that was still shrouded in mystery. It was the first operational jet fighter, and its presence heralded a new era in aerial combat. For the British pilots, accustomed to the roar of piston engines, this silent predator seemed almost otherworldly. They leaned closer, inspecting the wings adorned with a unique composition, an array of small, carefully designed slats, and a complex system of ailerons that promised unprecedented agility at high speeds. They recalled the strategic discussions back at their airfields, where rumors had circulated about an elusive German jet capable of reaching unimaginable velocities. Now, standing mere feet away from the reality of that rumor, the gravity of the moment weighed heavily on them. The implications of this technology were staggering, suggesting not just a tactical shift, but a profound strategic challenge that could alter the balance of the war. The Me-262 bore the scars of engagements past. Its fuselage, marked by the remnants of flak bursts and the scratches of aerial skirmishes, told stories of survival and resilience. British pilots exchanged knowing glances, each man recognizing the familiar signs of an opponent's tenacity. They understood that every dent represented not just a battle fought, but also the evolution of the face of war. In that moment, the aircraft was no longer merely a machine. It became a symbol of the relentless human ambition to conquer the skies, to push the limits of engineering in the pursuit of victory. Among the pilots, Flight Lieutenant John Bennett, an experienced veteran with multiple missions under his belt, stepped forward. He pointed out the ingenious use of jet propulsion, a technology that had been a dream only a few years prior. He marveled at the dual-engine layout, which not only offered power but stability at high velocities. His mind raced with calculations. How fast could they maneuver? What was the optimal angle for engagement against such a formidable foe? The realization that they were witnessing a quantum leap in aviation technology was both exhilarating and daunting. As they examined the cockpit, the pilots were struck by the simplicity of the controls compared to their own aircraft. The streamlined design indicated a level of sophistication that transcended the complexity of their traditional machines. Each dials and switch was positioned with ergonomic precision, a testament to German ingenuity. The pilots could almost hear the whispers of the engineers who had toiled away in secret, pouring their resolve into creating an airplane that could dominate the skies. However, they also considered the costs of such advancement. At what price had this remarkable feat been achieved, and what sacrifices had been made in the pursuit of supremacy? Bennett's thoughts turned to his comrades, many of whom had fallen in the relentless fight against German forces. The Me-262 was not just an adversary, it symbolized the evolving nature of warfare, where innovation could mean the difference between survival and demise. The presence of this aircraft at such a pivotal point in the conflict stirred a mixture of admiration and trepidation. For every pilot present, there lay a duality within, the resolve to defend their homeland and the dawning recognition that the enemy was also capable of remarkable creativity in the crucible of war. Their awe shifted into a sober understanding of the strategic implications. If the Germans could mass-produce such machines, they could turn the tide of air supremacy in their favor. The pilots envisioned waves of Me-262s soaring across Europe, shredding through formations of Allied bombers with ruthless efficiency. This possibility ignited a fierce determination within them. They knew they must adapt, innovate, and respond with equal ingenuity. This aircraft would not only challenge their skills, but would also serve as a catalyst for their own advancements in combat aviation. But in the midst of their deliberations, a profound lesson emerged from their inspection. The Me-262, while impressive, also presented an opportunity for reflection. It stood as a reminder of the transient nature of technological supremacy. That very moment, with its mingling of hope and dread, encapsulated the essence of warfare, an unceasing march toward the future, where each advancement brought new challenges, yet also the promise of resilience. As the pilots stepped back from the fighter, they carried with them not just the weight of their responsibilities, but a renewed sense of purpose. United by their collective resolve, they understood that the war was not merely a battle of machines, but a test of human spirit and ingenuity. The Me-262 had unveiled the vast potential of aviation, yet it also underscored the enduring truth that the heart behind the controls mattered most. In the face of relentless competition and the specter of defeat, they vowed to rise to the challenge, ready to reclaim the skies and demonstrate that the spirit of resistance would not be extinguished. As they departed, leaving the Me-262 behind, the memory of its wings would linger, both a challenge and a call to arms, forever etched in their minds as they continued their fight for freedom. As the British pilots stood before the Me-262 fighter, gazing at the advanced engineering that represented a significant leap in aviation technology, they confronted not only a marvel of innovation, but also the stark reality of the war they were embroiled in. The aircraft symbolized the relentless drive for superiority that characterized the conflict, prompting reflection on the lengths to which nations would go in their pursuit of dominance. In the hum of the engines and the sleek lines of the wings lay a reminder of the complexities of warfare, not merely a contest of machines, but a clash of ideologies and human aspirations. This encounter also underscored the responsibilities of those who wield such power. The choices made in the face of technological advancement could shape futures in ways that extend far beyond the battlefield. As history evolved in the wake of such innovations, the lessons learned from these encounters became paramount, urging us to consider the moral implications of progress and the quest for peace. The Me-262, with its cutting-edge design, thus serves as a poignant symbol of the dual-edged nature of ingenuity, a testament to human creativity that must be tempered by a commitment to humanity itself.